The crayon portrait was smudged at the edges, a riot of primary colors depicting what might have been a man in a suit or possibly a very tall rectangle with a circle on top. And when the woman pressed it into Marcus Thorne's hands outside the children's hospital, he nearly dropped his phone. "My son drew this for you," she said, slightly breathless, her dark hair escaping from a hasty ponytail. "He saw you speaking at the fundraiser last month and he wanted to say thank you." Marcus looked down at the drawing, then back at her. She wore scrubs printed with cartoon dinosaurs, and her eyes were the kind of brown that reminded him of honey in sunlight. Behind her, through the hospital's glass doors, he could see children in wheelchairs and parents holding vigil in uncomfortable chairs. He had come here to tour the new pediatric wing his company had funded, not to receive gifts. "I don't understand," he said, though his fingers had already closed protectively around the edges of the paper. "You donated the money that built the oncology ward." "My son, Jamie, he's been in treatment for leukemia for 8 months. He's 6 years old, and he wanted to draw you a picture because you helped give him a place where the rooms have windows and the walls aren't the color of sadness." Her voice caught slightly. "He's very specific about colors." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, some small movement like a door opening in a house he thought he had sealed shut. He had written the check for the hospital expansion the way he wrote most checks, with efficient strokes of a pen while his assistant scheduled his next meeting. $15 million to build a better facility. It had been good publicity for Thorne Industries, the manufacturing empire his grandfather had started, and his father had expanded into something that touched nearly every household in America. Marcus had taken it further still, diversifying into sustainable materials and green technology, until the company's worth had ballooned into the billions. But he had never thought about a 6-year-old boy named Jamie choosing crayons to draw his face. "What's your name?" he asked. "Claire Donovan. I'm a pediatric nurse here." She shifted her weight, clearly aware she had stepped outside during her break for this exact purpose. "I should get back, but Jamie was very insistent. He's having a good day today and he wanted me to make sure you got this." "Wait." Marcus pulled out his wallet, then felt immediately stupid. What was he going to do, offer her money? She had just told him why his money mattered, and somehow pulling out more seemed to cheapen it. "I'd like to meet him, Jamie, if that's allowed." Claire's expression flickered with surprise, then something more complicated. "You don't have to do that. I know." He looked down at the portrait again. The crayon version of himself had an enormous smile, bigger than any Marcus had worn in years. "But I'd like to." She studied him for a moment, and Marcus found himself hoping she would say yes with an intensity that startled him. He met with presidents and negotiated with foreign investors without a tremor of nervousness, but this woman in dinosaur scrubs made him feel oddly uncertain. "Room 304, she finally said. "But only for a few minutes. He gets tired easily." Marcus followed her through the bright corridors of the new wing, noting the details he had approved in architectural plans, but never really seen. Large windows overlooking a garden, walls painted in soft, hopeful colors, play areas with toys and books. Claire moved through it all with practiced efficiency, greeting other nurses and doctors by name, pausing to adjust a small boy's Roman IV stand when it started to roll away from his mother. Room 304 had a window view of an oak tree just beginning to show autumn colors. In the bed, propped up by pillows, was a small boy with no hair and eyes too large for his thin face. Those eyes went wide when he saw Marcus. "Mom, you found him." Jamie's voice was reedy but excited. "I did." Claire moved to his bedside automatically, checking monitors with the casual expertise of someone who did this 100 times a day. "This is Mr. Thorne. He wanted to thank you for the portrait." "Did you like it?" Jamie asked. "I made you smiling because Miss Sarah in art therapy says we should draw happy things." Marcus sat carefully in the chair beside the bed, still holding the drawing. "I love it. I think it's the best portrait anyone has ever made of me." "Really?" Jamie's face lit up. "Better than the one in the big building downtown. Mom showed me on her phone." "That one looks boring." Claire made a small, embarrassed sound, but Marcus laughed. The portrait Jamie referred to hung in Thorne Industries headquarters, a formal oil painting that had cost $50,000 and made Marcus look like a stern stranger. "Much better," Marcus agreed. "That one doesn't smile." They talked for 20 minutes. Jamie told him about art therapy and the new playroom and his favorite nurse, who always brought him orange popsicles. Claire stood slightly apart, monitoring her son with the vigilance of someone who had learned to read every sign of pain or fatigue. Marcus found himself watching her almost as much as he watched Jamie, noting the way she smoothed the blanket without thinking, the way her whole body seemed to relax slightly when Jamie laughed. When Jamie's eyelids started to droop, Claire intervened gently. "Time to rest, sweetheart." "Will you come back?" Jamie asked Marcus, his small hand reaching out. Marcus took it carefully, shocked by how fragile it felt. "If your mom says it's okay." "It's okay," Jamie said with the absolute authority of a 6-year-old, then looked at his mother. "Right, Mom?" Claire met Marcus's gaze over her son's head, and something passed between them, some wordless understanding. "We'll see," she said, which Marcus had learned long ago was parent speak for probably yes. Outside the room, Claire walked him back toward the elevators. "Thank you for that. You made his whole week." "He made mine." Marcus realized he was still holding the portrait. "I meant what I said. I'd like to visit again if that's appropriate." "Why?" The question wasn't hostile, just genuinely curious. Marcus considered several answers. "Because your son reminded me why I do this work. Because I haven't felt this human in months. Because you looked at me like I was a person, not a checkbook." "Because he's a remarkable kid," he said finally. "And because I'd like to." Claire nodded slowly. "Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually his best days, fewer treatments." "Tuesday, then." Marcus pressed the elevator button. "Same time." "Same time." He made it back to his car before he really looked at the portrait again. Jamie had drawn him with stick arms spread wide, as if embracing the world. In the bottom corner, in letters that wandered across the page, it said, "Thank you, Mr. Thorne," with the E missing. Marcus's assistant called while he was still sitting in the parking lot. "You're late for the quarterly meeting with the board." "Reschedule it," Marcus said. "Sir?" "Reschedule it." Something came up. He drove not to his office but to a frame shop in a neighborhood he would normally never visit, tucked between a dry cleaner and a Vietnamese restaurant. The woman behind the counter looked startled when she recognized him. "I need this framed," Marcus said, laying the portrait on the counter. "Best materials you have. Museum quality." She picked it up delicately, studying the crayon lines. "This is lovely. Did your child make it?" "A friend," Marcus said, and realized it was true. The framing took 3 days. Marcus had it hung in his office at Thorne Industries, not in the lobby or a conference room, but behind his desk, where he would see it every time he looked up from his computer. His executive team noticed, but said nothing. Marcus Thorne was a genius at business and notoriously private about everything else. If he wanted to hang a child's crayon drawing in a frame that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, That was his prerogative. Tuesday came and Marcus cleared his afternoon schedule. His assistant, Patricia, who had worked for him for 12 years and could read his moods like weather patterns, raised an eyebrow but made the necessary calls. Marcus stopped at a toy store on the way to the hospital, then felt overwhelmed by the sheer volume of options. What did 6-year-old boys like? What was appropriate for a child undergoing cancer treatment? He ended up buying a set of premium art supplies, the kind with dozens of colors and thick paper that could handle anything. And a stuffed dog, because Jamie had mentioned missing his pet golden retriever. Claire was at the nurse's station when he arrived, conferring with an older doctor about a chart. She glanced up, saw him, and something in her expression softened. "He's been talking about you all morning," she said when the doctor left. "Fair warning, he made you another portrait. This one has a cape." "A cape? He's decided you're a superhero." She led him down the corridor. "Also, thank you for coming. You didn't have to. I wanted to." This time, Marcus noticed more details. The way other nurses smiled at Claire with genuine affection. The thank you cards taped to her locker. The photo of Jamie, healthy and laughing, pinned to her bulletin board, taken in what Marcus assumed was the before time. Jamie was awake and alert, and he clutched the new portrait with both hands. "Look, I gave you a cape because you save people." The drawing showed a figure flying over a building, red cape streaming behind. It was even more abstract than the first one, but Marcus found it completely wonderful. "It's perfect," he said, and meant it. They fell into an easy routine. Marcus would arrive on Tuesday afternoons with some small gift. Nothing extravagant because Claire had gently but firmly told him that overwhelming Jamie with expensive toys would not be helpful. Art supplies, books, a puzzle of the solar system. Once, a harmonica, which Claire had accepted with a pained smile before explaining that perhaps musical instruments were not ideal in a hospital ward. "Point taken," Marcus had said, laughing at himself. He learned about Claire in pieces. She was 28, 4 years younger than Marcus. She had been married once, briefly, to a man who had left when Jamie's diagnosis came. "Couldn't handle it," she said without emotion, though Marcus saw the hurt underneath. She worked double shifts when she could, trying to manage the medical bills that insurance did not quite cover. She had family in Oregon but had moved to the city for nursing school and stayed for the job. "Do you ever sleep?" Marcus asked one Tuesday, noting the shadows under her eyes. "When I can." She was checking Jamie's vitals, her movements automatic. "Sleep is overrated." "That's what people say when they are not getting enough of it." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "I'm fine." Marcus made a note to himself. Later that week, he had Patricia quietly contact the hospital's billing department. Thorne Industries had a charitable foundation. It would not be difficult to arrange scholarships for families dealing with pediatric cancer treatment. Anonymous scholarships. Claire would never accept help if she knew it came from him specifically, but she could not argue with a foundation policy. He was getting good at reading her. The way she pressed her lips together when she was worried. The automatic reach for her son whenever she entered a room, as if confirming he was still there. The fierce protectiveness that flashed in her eyes when anyone suggested Jamie was not progressing as quickly as hoped. On a Thursday in October, Marcus arrived to find Jamie asleep and Claire sitting by the window, crying silently. She wiped her eyes quickly when she saw him, but he had already noticed. "Bad day?" He asked quietly. "The treatment is not working as well as they hoped. They want to try a different protocol." Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. It has more side effects. He's already so tired. Marcus sat in the chair beside her. They were both watching Jamie sleep, his small chest rising and falling under a blanket printed with rockets. What do the doctors say? That it's the best option, that we have to try. She turned to look at him, and Marcus saw the exhaustion and fear she usually kept hidden. I'm so scared. What if I lose him? He did something he had never done with an employee, a business associate, or even most of his friends. He reached out and took her hand. It was small and cold in his, and she gripped it like a lifeline. You won't, he said with more certainty than he felt. He's strong, you're strong. I don't feel strong. Strength is not the absence of fear, it's continuing despite it. He kept holding her hand, and she did not pull away. They sat like that for a long time, two people bound together by a small boy's courage. After that day, something changed between them. The conversations grew longer, more personal. Claire told him about growing up in a small town, about deciding to become a nurse after her grandmother spent months in a hospital. Marcus found himself sharing things he normally kept private. The pressure of running a company his family had built. The loneliness of being constantly surrounded by people who wanted something from him. His failed engagement 3 years earlier to a woman who had loved his wealth more than him. That must have hurt, Claire said. They were in the hospital cafeteria, stealing 20 minutes while Jamie had a procedure. The coffee was terrible, but they both drank it anyway. It did, for a while. Marcus stirred sugar into his cup. Then it mostly felt like relief, better to know the truth. Still, it's hard when someone does not see you just what you represent. You see me. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. Claire looked up, meeting his eyes directly. I suppose I do. The air between them felt suddenly charged, full of possibilities neither was quite ready to name. Marcus was aware of how close she was sitting, the faint scent of her shampoo, something floral and clean. Claire seemed equally aware, her cheeks flushing slightly. I should get back, she said, but she did not move immediately. Claire, Marcus set down his coffee cup, would you ever want to have dinner with me, somewhere that's not a hospital cafeteria? She bit her lip, and he could see her thinking through all the complications. I can't leave Jamie for long. What about lunch, on a day when he's with another nurse, just an hour? Why? The question again, but this time it carried different weight. Because I enjoy talking to you. Because I think about you when I'm not here. Because you make me want to be the person Jamie drew in that portrait. He paused. Because I think you might feel the same way. Claire was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. Saturday. Jamie's grandparents are visiting from Oregon. They will stay with him for a few hours. Saturday arrived with unseasonably warm weather, October pretending to be September. Marcus picked a restaurant near the hospital, nowhere fancy, just a bistro with good food and quiet tables. He arrived early and found himself nervous in a way he had not been since high school, checking his reflection in the window and wondering if he should have worn a different shirt. Claire appeared right on time, wearing jeans and a green sweater that brought out the gold in her eyes. She had left her hair down, and Marcus realized it was the first time he had seen her outside of work mode, outside of being Jamie's mother. Hi, she said, slightly breathless. Hi. Marcus stood, pulled out her chair, tried to remember how to act like a normal person on a normal date. They ordered salads and sandwiches, talked about everything except the hospital. Claire told him about her love of hiking, something she had not done in months. Marcus confessed his terrible habit of reading financial reports at 3 in the morning. She made him laugh with a story about Jamie's preschool years. He made her laugh, describing his assistant's campaign to get him to eat vegetables. "Patricia sounds formidable," Claire said. "She once made a board member cry. He deserved it, but still." Marcus reached across the table, tentatively, and Claire met him halfway. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they had been doing this for years instead of minutes. "This is nice," Claire said softly. "I'd forgotten what nice felt like." "Me too." They talked until Claire's phone alarm reminded her she needed to get back. Marcus walked her to her car, an aging sedan that had clearly seen better days, and he made another mental note. Not to replace it, that would be overstepping, but maybe to ensure it was safe, mechanically sound. "Thank you for lunch," Claire said, lingering by the driver's door. "Thank you for saying yes." Marcus wanted to kiss her, wanted it with a fierceness that surprised him, but he held back. Too soon. Too much at stake. Claire seemed to read his mind. She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, quick and soft. "See you Tuesday." Marcus touched his cheek where her lips had been and grinned like an idiot all the way back to his car. The next few weeks were a careful dance. Tuesday and Thursday visits to Jamie, who was responding better to the new treatment protocol. Stolen lunches with Claire when her schedule allowed. Text messages that stretched late into the night, the kind of messages where they shared hopes and fears and terrible jokes. Marcus's friends noticed the change in him. His college roommate, now a lawyer in Boston, called him out during their monthly phone conversation. "You sound different," Andrew said. "Happy? What happened?" "I met someone." Marcus Thorne, commitment phobe extraordinaire, met someone. "Tell me everything." Marcus found himself explaining about Jamie, about Claire, about how a crayon portrait had somehow redirected his entire life. Andrew listened, then whistled low. "You've got it bad. I really do. So when do I meet her? When I'm sure I'm not going to mess this up." Because that was the fear underneath everything, the worry that kept Marcus awake at night. What if he was too damaged by his past relationship? Too consumed by his work, too fundamentally unsuited for the kind of love Claire deserved? What if his presence in her life was just another complication she did not need? Claire, for her part, had her own reservations. She confessed them one evening when Marcus visited after hours, bringing Chinese food he insisted she eat. "I don't know how to do this," she said, picking at her noodles. "Dating. Opening up. Jamie has to be my priority. I know that. I would never ask you to change that. And you're a billionaire." She said it matter-of-factly. "I looked you up. Thorne Industries is worth over $4 billion. You're on magazine covers." Marcus set down his food. "Does that matter? It's intimidating. We live in different worlds. Right now, we're both sitting in uncomfortable hospital chairs eating mediocre lo mein. The worlds don't seem that different." She smiled despite herself. "You know what I mean." "I do. But Claire, the money, the company, that's what I do. It's not who I am. Who I am is the person who wants to hear about your day, who thinks about you constantly, who is falling in love with you." He paused, realizing what he had just admitted. That last part might be too much too soon. Claire put down her chopsticks. Her eyes were very bright. "It's not too much. It's terrifying and wonderful, and I feel it too." Marcus crossed the small distance between their chairs and kissed her properly this time, tasting ginger and promise. Claire kissed him back, her hand coming up to cup his face, and for a moment the hospital disappeared, the world narrowed to just the two of them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Claire laughed shakily. "Okay then." "Okay then," Marcus echoed. Jamie noticed the change immediately. "Are you Mom's boyfriend now?" He asked Marcus the next Tuesday with the blunt curiosity of childhood. Marcus glanced at Claire, who flushed but nodded. "If that's okay with you." Jamie considered this seriously. "Do you love her?" "I do." "Do you love me?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I do, very much." "Okay then, you can be the boyfriend." Jamie returned his attention to the coloring book Marcus had brought. The matter settled in his mind. Claire mouthed, "Thank you," over Jamie's head, and Marcus mouthed back, "Anytime." November brought Jamie's 7th birthday and a tentatively positive prognosis. The new treatment was working. Slowly, with setbacks and hard days, but working. Jamie was getting stronger. The doctors started using words like remission and hopeful. Marcus threw Jamie a birthday party in the hospital's rec room, with more balloons than any one room should reasonably hold, and a cake shaped like a dinosaur. Claire protested the extravagance, but her eyes were wet with happy tears when Jamie blew out his candles, surrounded by friends from the ward and nurses who had become family. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Claire said. Jamie closed his eyes, thought hard, and blew. When the candles were out and the cake was being cut, he leaned over to Marcus and whispered, "I wished for you to be my dad." Marcus nearly dropped the plastic plates he was holding. Claire, overhearing, went very still. Jamie looked between them with the sudden anxiety of a child who fears he has said something wrong. "Is that okay?" Jamie asked in a small voice. Marcus knelt down so they were eye level. "That's more than okay. That's the best birthday wish I've ever heard." That night, after Jamie was asleep and the rec room was clean, Marcus and Claire stood in the hallway and had the conversation that had been building for weeks. "He's 7, Claire said. "He does not really understand what he's asking for." "Maybe not entirely, but I do." Marcus took both her hands. "I know this is fast, I know it's complicated, but Claire, I'm in this. Not just with you, but with both of you. I want to be there for Jamie's treatments and his triumphs. I want to be there when you're exhausted and need someone to lean on. I want all of it." "I'm scared," she whispered. "What if something goes wrong? What if you realize this is too much? What if it goes right? What if we get to be happy?" He pulled her close and she came willingly, resting her head against his chest. "I'm not going anywhere, Claire. I promise." She looked up at him, searching his face for any hint of doubt. Whatever she saw there satisfied her, because she kissed him with a fierceness that spoke of hope and trust and love finally allowed to flourish. December was consumed by preparations. Jamie was being discharged, not permanently but for a trial run at home with outpatient treatments. Claire's apartment was tiny and up 3 flights of stairs, not ideal for a child still regaining strength. Marcus did not suggest she move in with him, knowing that would be too much too fast, but he did suggest a compromise. "There's an apartment building I own downtown. Ground floor units with accessible features. Let me put you in one, no rent, just until Jamie is stronger." Claire's pride flared immediately. "I can't accept that." "Why not?" "I own the building anyway. The unit is empty. You would actually be doing me a favor by occupying it." "Marcus." "Claire," he gentled his voice. "Let me help, please. Not because you need me to, but because I need to do this. For both of you." She struggled with it. He could see the war between independence and practicality playing out across her face. Finally, she nodded. "Just until he's stronger, then we reevaluate. Deal." The apartment was beautiful, full of light and space, and Jamie's reaction when he saw it made everything worthwhile. "Mom, there's a park outside. And the bathroom has handles. And look at my room." Claire stood in the living room and cried, the good kind of crying, while Marcus held her and felt something in his chest expand past the point of containing. This was what money should do. Not build monuments to ego or accumulate in accounts, but create safety and joy for the people who mattered. Christmas came with Jamie home, getting stronger every day. Marcus spent Christmas Eve with them, helping Jamie hang stockings and assemble a train set that had far too many pieces. Claire made hot chocolate and burned the cookies, and it was the best Christmas Marcus had ever had. "I got you something," Claire said after Jamie had finally gone to sleep, visions of Santa dancing in his 7-year-old head. She handed Marcus a flat package wrapped in Sunday comics. Inside was a frame, simple wood, holding all the portraits Jamie had drawn. The first smiling figure, the superhero with the cape, a dozen others from various visits arranged in a collage. At the bottom, Claire had added a small plaque that read "The Man Who Stayed." Marcus could not speak for a moment. When he found his voice, it was rough with emotion. "This is perfect." "You are perfect," Claire said, "for us, for Jamie, for me." He kissed her then, soft and slow, tasting chocolate and promise. "Marry me." Claire pulled back, eyes wide. "What? Marry me?" "I know it's soon. I know it's crazy, but I love you. I love Jamie. I want to make this official, permanent. I want to be the person Jamie wished for. I want to be your husband." He realized he did not have a ring, had not planned this moment, was doing everything backward. "I don't have a ring yet. I'll get you whatever you want. But Claire, please say yes." She was crying again, nodding before she could get the words out. "Yes, yes, of course yes." Marcus pulled her close and held on. This woman who had changed everything, who had shown him that wealth meant nothing compared to love, that the best investments were the ones you made with your whole heart. They were married in March, a small ceremony in the hospital's garden because Jamie was back for a routine checkup, and they wanted him to be part of it. Jamie was the ring bearer, taking his job very seriously, walking down the makeshift aisle with careful steps. Claire wore a simple white dress and carried daisies. Marcus wore a suit and could not stop smiling. The hospital staff attended, along with Marcus's small circle of close friends and Claire's parents, who had flown in from Oregon. The officiant was the hospital chaplain, who had watched this unlikely love story unfold from crayon portraits to marriage vows. "I promise to love you in sickness and health," Marcus said, holding Claire's hands, "to be the partner you deserve and the father Jamie needs. I promise to see you always for who you are, to support your dreams and share your burdens, to make you laugh and hold you when you cry. I promise to stay." Claire's vows were equally simple and devastating. "I promise to trust you with my heart and my son, to let you in, even when it's scary, to build a life with you full of art and laughter and terrible burnt cookies. I promise to love you, Marcus, with everything I have." They exchanged rings, simple gold bands that had been chosen together. When the chaplain pronounced them married, Jamie cheered louder than anyone, and Marcus kissed his wife while their son whooped, and the small gathering applauded. The reception was in the same rec room where Jamie's birthday had been celebrated. Cake and punch and dancing to music from someone's phone. Jamie danced with his mother, then his new father, then fell asleep on a pile of coats while the adults talked and laughed. "You did good, Thorne," Andrew said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Really good. I got lucky." "No, you opened yourself up to possibility. That's not luck, that's courage." Marcus watched Claire across the room talking with her mother, radiant with happiness. She caught his eye and smiled, that smile that had hooked him from the first day, and he knew Andrew was right. The courage had been in saying yes to a 6-year-old's portrait, to showing up on Tuesdays, to letting himself fall in love with a woman and her son who had needed him to be more than his bank account. April brought the news they had been praying for. Jamie was in remission. Full remission. The doctors cautioned that he would need monitoring, ongoing checkups, but the word remission hung in the air like a benediction. Claire sobbed in Marcus's arms in the hospital hallway while Jamie, oblivious to the gravity, asked if remission meant he could get a dog now. "Yes," Marcus said, kneeling down. "Remission means we can get you the biggest, slobberiest dog we can find." They adopted a golden retriever puppy named Rocket, who immediately became Jamie's constant companion. The apartment that was supposed to be temporary became home, filled with dog toys and artwork, and the happy chaos of family life. Marcus adjusted his work schedule, delegating more to his extremely capable executive team. Patricia approved wholeheartedly, having met Claire and decided she was exactly what her workaholic boss needed. Thorne Industries continued to thrive, but Marcus was no longer consumed by it. He left work at 5 to have dinner with his family. He took weekends off to go hiking with Claire while Jamie played with Rocket. He learned that success was not measured in quarterly earnings, but in a child's laughter and his wife's kiss goodnight. Claire returned to work part-time, not because they needed the money, but because she loved nursing and was good at it. Marcus supported her completely, taking Jamie to his appointments and managing the morning routine on the days Claire had early shifts. They became a team, balanced and strong. One evening in June, almost a year after that first Tuesday visit, Marcus sat at his desk at home going through paperwork. The crayon portrait hung on the wall, the first one, professionally framed. He looked at it often, reminded of the unexpected ways life could redirect. Jamie wandered in, Rocket at his heels, holding a new drawing. "I made this for you and Mom." The portrait showed 3 figures holding hands, a tall one, a medium one, and a small one. Above them, Jamie had written in increasingly confident letters, "My family." Marcus pulled Jamie onto his lap, this boy who had become his son in every way that mattered. "It's beautiful, buddy. Do you think we'll be like this forever?" Jamie asked with the philosophical bent of a 7-year-old who had seen too much of life's fragility. "I think we'll do everything we can to make forever happen. And whatever time we get, we'll make it count." Marcus kissed the top of Jamie's head. "Deal, deal." Claire appeared in the doorway, fresh from a shower, and smiled at the sight of her husband and son huddled over a drawing. "Are you two conspiring?" "Always," Marcus said, extending a hand to her. She crossed the room and folded herself into their embrace, the 3 of them close and tangled and perfect. That night, after Jamie was asleep and the house was quiet, Marcus and Claire lay in bed talking in whispers about everything and nothing. The kind of conversation that married people have, full of grocery lists and dreams and casual intimacy. "Do you ever regret it?" Claire asked. "The whirlwind nature of us." Marcus turned to face her, tracing the line of her cheekbone with his finger. "Never, not for a second, do you?" "No, though sometimes I still can't believe it's real, that you're real." "I'm real." "We're real." He kissed her softly. "And I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise." 2 years later, Claire was pregnant. They had talked about expanding their family, wondering if it was too soon or if Jamie would feel displaced. But Jamie had asked for a sibling with the same earnestness he had once asked for a dog, and they decided to try. The pregnancy was easy, uncomplicated, a blessing after so much medical anxiety with Jamie. Claire glowed with health while Marcus fussed over her like a nervous mother hen. Jamie talked to his future sibling daily, regaling Claire's belly with stories about Rocket and kindergarten, and his dad the superhero. Emily Rose Thorne was born in September, tiny and perfect and loud. Jamie held her with extreme care, looking down at his sister with awe. "She's so small. Was I that small?" "Smaller," Claire said from the hospital bed, exhausted and radiant. Marcus cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, overwhelmed by the enormity of this new life they had created. Emily had Claire's eyes and Marcus's nose, and when she wrapped her impossibly small fingers around his, he fell in love all over again. They brought her home to the apartment that had long since stopped being temporary and started being theirs. Jamie helped with everything, fetching diapers and singing lullabies he made up on the spot. Rocket appointed himself Emily's guardian, lying beside her bassinet with watchful eyes. The exhaustion of new parenthood was real, but they navigated it together. Marcus took paternity leave, his first real vacation in a decade. They survived on coffee and love, and the occasional breakdown in the laundry room when everything felt like too much. But mostly, they survived on joy, the simple happiness of their created family. One night, walking the floor with a fussy Emily while Claire caught a few hours of desperately needed sleep, Marcus looked around at his life. The apartment full of toys and artwork. The dog snoring on the couch. Jamie asleep in his room, his walls covered in his own drawings, getting better and more sophisticated every year. Claire in their bed, her hair a mess and spit up on her shirt and beautiful beyond measure. This was wealth, Marcus thought. Not the billions in his bank account or the company with his name on the building. This was the fortune that mattered. Emily settled against his chest, her fussing subsiding. Marcus swayed gently, humming a song he had heard Claire sing, and thought about the crayon portrait that had started everything. It still hung in his office at work, the smiling stick figure with the misspelled gratitude. He had never moved it, even when board members questioned his decoration choices. "Your big brother drew that for me," Marcus whispered to Emily. "Before you existed, before I knew I could have this, he saw something in me I didn't see in myself. And he made me want to be that person." Emily made a small sound, her fist curling against his shirt. "I'm going to try my best to be worthy of all of you," Marcus continued, knowing she could not understand but needing to say it anyway. "To be the dad you deserve, the husband your mother deserves. To build a life full of love and laughter and safety." Claire appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a robe, her eyes soft. "You already are. Did we wake you?" "No. Well, yes. But I wanted to check on you both." She crossed to them, resting her head on Marcus's shoulder, the three of them swaying together in the dim light. "I love you. I love you too, both of you. All of you." Marcus kissed his wife's forehead, then his daughter's. "Thank you for letting me be part of this. Thank you for staying." They stood like that for a long time, a tableau of exhausted contentment. Eventually, Emily fell fully asleep, and Marcus placed her carefully in the bassinet. Claire took his hand and led him back to bed, where they collapsed in a tangle of limbs, too tired for anything but holding each other close. The years unfolded with the messy beauty of real life. Jamie continued to thrive, his cancer remaining in remission. He started playing soccer and discovered a talent for it that surprised everyone. Marcus coached his team, learning the rules from YouTube videos, and earning the affection of all the kids who thought having a billionaire coach was incredibly cool once they understood what a billionaire was. Emily grew into a spirited toddler with strong opinions about everything. She adored her big brother and followed him everywhere, much to Jamie's alternating delight and annoyance. She had Claire's fierce determination and Marcus's analytical mind, a combination that meant she could argue her way out of bedtime with frightening effectiveness. Claire became head of pediatric nursing at the hospital, a promotion she had earned through years of dedication. Marcus was absurdly proud, bragging to anyone who would listen about his brilliant wife. She still worked some shifts in the oncology ward, unable to fully leave the place where she had spent Jamie's darkest days, where she had met the man who would become her husband. Thorn Industries launched a new initiative, a foundation dedicated to supporting families dealing with pediatric cancer. It provided financial assistance, housing support, and mental health services. Claire helped design the program, drawing on her own experiences. They named it the Jamie Foundation, over Jamie's embarrassed protests that he was just a kid and did not need things named after him. "You started all of this," Marcus told him. "You drew a portrait and changed my life. This foundation will change other lives. It's fitting." The foundation helped hundreds of families in its first year. Marcus saw his own story reflected in their faces, the exhaustion and fear and desperate hope. He made sure every family knew they were not alone, that support was available, that someone understood. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Marcus and Claire renewed their vows in the same hospital garden. Jamie was 12 now, tall and healthy, his hair grown back thick and dark like his mother's. Emily was 4, wearing a princess dress and throwing flower petals with abandon. Rocket, older and grayer, wore a bow tie. "5 years ago I promised to stay," Marcus said, holding Claire's hands just as he had the first time. "I've kept that promise and I will keep it for the rest of my life. You are my home, Claire. You and our children. Everything good in my life traces back to you." Claire was crying, happy tears that had become familiar over their years together. "5 years ago, you were a stranger with a kind face who made my son smile. Now you're my husband, my partner, my love. You're the father who shows up at every soccer game and makes pancakes on Sunday and reads bedtime stories with different voices for every character. You're everything I didn't know to wish for." They kissed while their children made exaggerated gagging sounds and their friends cheered. The chaplain, the same one who had married them the first time, beamed with grandfatherly pride. The celebration afterward was larger than their wedding had been, spilling through the hospital's event space. Doctors and nurses mixed with business executives and board members. Jamie's soccer team attended en masse, as did families from the Jamie Foundation. It was a beautiful chaos of community, all the lives that had become intertwined through love and generosity and a child's crayon drawing. Marcus gave a speech that made everyone cry. He talked about the portrait, about the moment his life had changed, about the importance of being open to unexpected blessings. He thanked Claire for trusting him, Jamie for seeing him, Emily for completing their family. He announced a major expansion of the Jamie Foundation, funded personally by him and Claire, that would extend services nationwide. Later, when the party had wound down and they were helping clean up, Jamie found his father standing in front of the original portrait, which Marcus had brought from his office for the occasion. "Do you remember drawing this?" Marcus asked. Jamie studied it, his expression thoughtful. "Sort of. I remember Mom telling me we could thank you. I remember wanting to make you smile because you looked sad in the pictures on the computer. I was sad, I just didn't know it. Are you still sad?" Marcus pulled his son close, this boy who had saved him without knowing it. "Not even a little bit. I'm the opposite of sad, I'm grateful." "Me too," Jamie said. "For getting better. For you." For M, even though she's annoying sometimes, for all of it. Even the cancer, Jamie considered this seriously. I wouldn't want to do it again, but it brought us you, so maybe even that. Marcus hugged him tighter, overwhelmed by the wisdom of a 12-year-old who had lived through more than most adults. I love you, kid. Love you too, Dad. Emily crashed into them, wanting to be part of the hug, and then Claire joined. And they stood there in a family embrace while the cleaning crew worked around them, and the evening settled into night. The portrait hung in their home after that, moved from Marcus's office to a place of honor in the living room. Visitors always asked about it, and Marcus always told the story. The sick little boy who drew a smiling man, the nurse who had stolen his heart, the family built from crayon and courage. Years continued to pass. Jamie went to high school, then college, studying art therapy because he wanted to help other kids the way he had been helped. Emily followed in her mother's footsteps, developing a passion for science and medicine. Rocket eventually passed away, mourned by the whole family, and was replaced by 2 sheltered dogs that Emily insisted needed rescuing. Marcus's hair went gray at the temples. Claire's remained dark but picked up threads of silver she refused to dye. They grew older together, finding new rhythms as their children became more independent. Date nights became regular again. Weekend trips to the mountains Claire loved. Quiet mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles. Thorn Industries passed to new leadership, as Marcus gradually stepped back, maintaining a chairman role but no longer running day-to-day operations. He had trained his successors well, ensured the company's values would outlast him. His legacy was not the billions in revenue, but the foundation that helped families, the green technologies that protected the environment, the culture of giving back he had instilled. But his real legacy was simpler. It was Jamie, grown into a compassionate man who used art to heal. It was Emily, fierce and brilliant, determined to change the world. It was Claire, still nursing part-time, still bringing light into dark places. It was the family they had built against all odds. On the 20th anniversary of that first crayon portrait, the family gathered in the living room. Jamie was 27, recently engaged to a wonderful woman he had met in graduate school. Emily was 19, home from her first year of college. Marcus and Claire were in their early 50s, still very much in love. I found something in the attic, Jamie said, pulling out a box. Inside were all the portraits he had drawn over the years, dozens of them, chronicling Marcus's transformation from stranger to father. I thought maybe we could do something with these. Like what? Emily asked, leaning over to look through them. A gallery show. Dad's been bugging me about displaying my work. These tell a story, our story. Marcus looked at Claire, saw his own emotion reflected in her eyes. Their story, captured in crayon and marker and eventually paint, the evolution of a family. I think that's perfect, Claire said. The gallery show opened 3 months later, in a small but respected space downtown. The portraits lined the walls chronologically, starting with the original smiling stick figure and ending with a recent painting Jamie had done of the whole family, rendered in his now sophisticated style, but still maintaining the heart of those early crayon drawings. The opening was packed. Art critics and society reporters and everyone who had been touched by the Thorne family's story. The centerpiece was the very first portrait, still in its museum-quality frame with a plaque explaining its significance. This is where it started, the plaque read. A sick child's gratitude, expressed in primary colors. A businessman who chose to see the person behind the drawing. A nurse who dared to hope. A family built on the foundation of love, one crayon stroke at a time. Marcus stood in front of it, Claire's hand in his, and marveled at the journey. From that moment in the hospital parking lot to this, all the years between, all the joy and fear and triumph and love. "Any regrets?" Claire asked softly. "Not a single one." "Not even the terrible coffee in the hospital cafeteria," Marcus laughed. "Okay, maybe one regret." Jamie found them, his fiancée at his side. "People keep asking if you're planning to buy any of the portraits." "All of them," Marcus said immediately. "Every single one. Their family history." "Dad, they're supposed to be for sale to other people." "Then I'll outbid them." Marcus was completely serious. "These are ours, our story, they belong with us." Jamie shook his head but smiled. "You're impossible. I'm your father. It's my job to be impossible sometimes." Emily appeared with a champagne flute. Technically too young to drink, but no one was enforcing that particularly strictly at a family event. "There's a reporter from that art magazine asking for interviews." "You do it," Jamie said. "You're better at talking to press." "Only because Dad made me practice for the foundation fundraisers." They bickered good-naturedly while Marcus and Claire watched with parental amusement. This was the miracle, Marcus thought, not the billions or the success or the accolades. This. The ordinary, extraordinary beauty of family. Later that night, after the show had closed and the family had returned home, Marcus sat in his study looking at the original portrait. He had bought all of Jamie's artwork from the show, as promised, but this one had never really been for sale. It was the piece that had changed everything. Claire found him there, brought him tea without asking because she knew his habits as well as her own. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, settling into the chair beside him. "About how different life could have been. If I had not stopped at the hospital that day. If I had dismissed the portrait as a publicity stunt. If I had been too busy or too closed off." "But you didn't, you weren't." "I almost was." Marcus took her hand. "I was minutes away from just going to my meeting, from missing everything, from missing you. But you stopped. You saw Jamie. You came back." Claire squeezed his fingers. "That's what matters, not the alternate timeline but the one we lived." "The one we're living," Marcus corrected. "Still present tense, still happening." "Still happening," Claire agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that came from decades of knowing someone completely. Outside, they could hear Emily on the phone with friends, her laughter carrying through the house. Jamie's car pulled into the driveway, returning from dropping off his fiancée. This was wealth, Marcus thought again, as he had thought so many times over the years. This collection of ordinary moments strung together like pearls on a string, the sound of his children's voices, the warmth of his wife's hand, the crayon portrait that had started a love story. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "For what?" "For taking a chance on me, for trusting me with Jamie. For building this life with me." Claire leaned over and kissed him, soft and familiar and still able to make his heart race after all these years. "Thank you for being the man in that portrait. The one who smiles, the one who stays." "Always," Marcus promised, "for as long as I live and beyond that if I can manage it. That's a long time. Not long enough." They stayed in the study until Jamie knocked on the door, asking if anyone wanted late-night ice cream. The answer was always yes in their house, and soon the whole family was gathered in the kitchen, debating flavors and toppings and retelling stories from the gallery opening. Marcus looked around at his family, bathed in the warm light of the kitchen, and felt complete. The journey from billionaire workaholic to husband and father had not been easy, but it had been worthwhile beyond measure. Every Tuesday visit, every hospital cafeteria lunch, every moment of fear and hope had led to this. The crayon portrait hung in the other room, a reminder of where they had started. But the real portrait was here in this kitchen, in this moment. 4 people who loved each other fiercely, who had fought for their family, who had chosen to stay when things got hard. Jamie's cancer remained in remission, 20 years and counting. He had built a life helping others, using his art to bring comfort to children facing what he had faced. Emily was becoming a doctor, driven by watching her brother's journey and wanting to be part of other families' healing. Claire still worked in the pediatric ward, though now as an administrator, improving systems and training new nurses. And Marcus had transformed from a lonely CEO into a man rich in the things that mattered. As the evening wore on and the ice cream disappeared, as Emily and Jamie bickered over the last of the chocolate sauce and Claire laughed at some private joke, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the portrait, for Jamie's courage in approaching him that day, for Claire's willingness to let him into their lives, for every choice that had led to this moment. "What are you smiling about?" Emily asked, catching his expression. "Everything," Marcus said honestly, "absolutely everything." And in the living room, the crayon portrait smiled back. The stick figure with the enormous grin and misspelled gratitude. The drawing that had changed the course of 4 lives and created a family bound not by blood alone, but by choice, by love, by the simple, profound act of seeing each other truly. 23 years after a 6-year-old boy handed a stranger a crayon portrait, the family it had created gathered for another celebration. Jamie and his wife had just welcomed their first child, a daughter named Rose, after Emily's middle name. Emily had graduated medical school at the top of her class and was starting her residency in pediatric oncology. Claire and Marcus were grandparents, roles they embraced with enthusiastic grace. The family gathered at the house Marcus and Claire had finally built 5 years earlier, after years of saying they should leave the apartment but never quite doing it. The house had a large yard for the dogs and grandchildren, a studio for Jamie's art, and a garden where Claire grew vegetables with mixed success. Rose was passed around like a precious treasure, each family member taking their turn holding the newest addition. Marcus cradled his granddaughter with the confidence of a man who had raised 2 children, marveling at the generational echo. This was Jamie's daughter. The boy from the portrait, now a father himself. "She has your eyes," Marcus told Jamie. "She has my sleepless nights," Jamie said with the rueful humor of a new parent. "I finally understand why you and Mom looked so tired when Em was born." "It gets easier," Claire promised, though Emily snorted. "Liar, you 2 still look tired." "That's just age, sweetheart," Marcus said, making everyone laugh. Later, when Rose was sleeping and the family was scattered around the living room in comfortable chaos, Jamie produced a package wrapped in brown paper. "I made something for you and Mom," he told Marcus, "for the new house." Inside was a painting, large and luminous. It showed a man and woman and 2 children, rendered in Jamie's mature style, but with deliberate echoes of his childhood work. The colors were bright primary shades mixed with more sophisticated tones. The figures were holding hands, smiling, surrounded by light. But in the corner, small and perfect, was a recreation of the original crayon portrait. The stick figure with the enormous smile, the misspelled thank you, the child's earnest gratitude. "Jamie," Claire breathed, her hand going to her mouth. "I wanted to honor where we started," Jamie said. That portrait changed everything. It brought us Dad. It made us a family. So I painted us now, but with a reminder of then. Marcus could not speak. He stood and pulled his son into a fierce hug. This man who had been a sick little boy with a crayon, who had seen something worth drawing in a stranger's face, who had given Marcus the greatest gift of his life. "Thank you," Marcus finally managed, "for this, for that first drawing, for being exactly who you are." "Thank you for staying," Jamie said, echoing the words his mother had said so many years ago. The painting was hung in the place of honor in the living room above the fireplace. The original crayon portrait was moved to hang beside it, the before and after, the then and now. Together, they told a story of love found in unexpected places, of family created through choice and courage, of a billionaire who learned that his greatest success had nothing to do with business. As the sun set and the family settled in for the evening, Marcus stood looking at both portraits. Claire joined him, slipping her hand into his with the automatic intimacy of decades together. "We did good," she said quietly. "We did great. Do you think young Marcus would believe this, if you could go back and tell him about all of this?" Marcus considered. The man he had been, driven and lonely, measuring worth in dollars and deals. Would he have believed that a crayon portrait would lead to this? To love and family and joy so profound it sometimes hurt? "No," he said honestly. "I would not have been able to imagine this much happiness. I would not have thought I deserved it. And now I know that deserving has nothing to do with it. Love is not earned. It's given freely, and the only requirement is being brave enough to accept it." Claire kissed his cheek. "When did you become so wise?" "When a nurse with kind eyes and a sick son taught me what really matters." They stood together watching their family. Emily playing with her niece, making exaggerated faces that sent Rose into baby giggles. Jamie and his wife discussing sleep schedules with the earnest concern of new parents. The dogs sprawled at everyone's feet, shameless in their quest for attention. This was Marcus's empire, he thought, not Thorne Industries with its billions in assets. Not the foundation helping thousands of families, not the accolades or the magazine covers or the respect of his peers. This living room full of love and laughter. This family built on the foundation of a child's crayon drawing. The original portrait still smiled from the wall, eternal and unchanging. The stick figure with joy rendered in primary colors. The beginning of everything. And beside it, the new painting showed the same joy, evolved and deepened but fundamentally unchanged. "I love you," Marcus told Claire, the words as essential as breathing. "I love you too, always." And in that moment, surrounded by the family they had created, Marcus Thorne knew he was the richest man in the world. Not because of the money or the success or the power, but because a 6-year-old boy had once handed him a crayon portrait, and he had been wise enough, brave enough, to accept the gift it represented. The gift of being seen. The gift of being chosen. The gift of love that transformed everything it touched. 25 years after that first Tuesday afternoon visit, Marcus Thorne stood in his garden and smiled. It was the same smile the crayon portrait had captured all those years ago. The smile of a man who had found his way home through the most unexpected path. The smile of someone who knew that the best things in life could not be planned or purchased, only accepted with gratitude and protected with love. And somewhere in the house behind him, a child's laughter rang out, bright and joyful, the sound of family continuing, the story still being written in strokes of love and devotion, and the simple, profound choice to stay, always and forever together.